All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. We had some technical difficulties this evening. Just know you may need to try signing onto the Wi-Fi more than once if you need to access your phone or computer from in here and you're not already on. The West Hollywood Planning Commission acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and the Gabrielino Kizh peoples. This Planning Commission meeting is being live broadcast and teleconferenced on the city's website and is also provided on a wide array of streaming media platforms to offer access to the public to the fullest extent possible. You may call in to make a comment, and you may also listen to this meeting by dialing 669-900-6833, meeting ID 865-1066-1052, and then press the pound sign. WehoTV staff have confirmed that this Planning Commission meeting is currently streaming successfully on Spectrum Channel 10 and online at weho.org/WehoTV. In addition, and as a courtesy, this meeting is also successfully streaming on the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/WehoTV and on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Android TV. WehoTV staff monitor this broadcast on all platforms throughout the meeting and will notify the Planning Commission Secretary should broadcast disruptions arise. Please do not interrupt the live meeting by calling or texting the Planning Commissioners about difficulties viewing the meeting. Please understand that internet speeds, device reliability, third-party platform reliability, and individual or personal technical issues are out of the scope of this broadcast. If you are experiencing viewing difficulties while watching this live stream, please reload the page or visit weho.org/WehoTV to access our official live stream and to view a list of other available streaming options and a guide to troubleshoot your connection. If you continue to experience difficulties, you can also call 323-848-3151. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and officially call to order this meeting of the West Hollywood Planning Commission. This is a regularly scheduled meeting. If anyone needed a reminder, it's Thursday, November 3rd, and here we are. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. This used to be a lot easier. Commissioner Gregoire, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Thank you. Item 3 is roll call. David, can you please call roll for us?
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Matos.
Present.
Commissioner Lombardi.
Present.
Commissioner Gregoire.
Here.
Commissioner Copeland.
Here.
Commissioner Carvalero. Vice Chair Thomas.
Here.
Chair Jones.
Here.
And we have a full quorum.
Thank you. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. I do have a request for a change, and that is because we will have a recusal by one of the commissioners on item 10C. So I'd like to move that we move item 14A, of course, if staff is amenable for the planning manager's update, up to, I suppose, just before our public hearing.
I'll move approval.
So you'll second?
As amended.
You'll second, all right.
I'm sorry, Chair Jones moved it?
Commissioner Gregoire seconded.
Okay, I have Commissioner Matos, the second. And the motion carries unanimously to approve the agenda as amended for November 3rd, 2022.
Great, thank you. Our next item is item 5, approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes to approve. These are for the meeting occurring on October 6th. I will need to recuse from this as I was not present at that meeting. The minutes from our last meeting, if anybody was in attendance, it was a long one. There is a continuation being recommended until our next meeting on Thursday, November 17th.
Motion by Commissioner Lombardi, Seconded by Commissioner Matos. And the motion carries, noting 6 ayes. Chair Jones recusing, abstained, approving the minutes as presented for October 6th, 2022.
Great, thank you. Item 6 is public comment. I just want to note we do have several items that are public hearings tonight, but if you have anything general that do not, any comments that do not pertain to the 3 items that we have on deck tonight, please feel free to fill out a speaker slip and speak at this time. Or David, do we have anybody on the phone who would like to speak?
I have one person in chambers tonight. If there is anybody on the Zoom platform that would like to make a general comment, please star 9 for me at this time. That'll let me know you'd like to make a comment, and I will give you 3 minutes for that. We'll take the speaker in chambers first, Victor Omelchenko. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Victor Omelchenko. I'm a longtime resident of West Hollywood, and I haven't been to too many planning commission meetings, so I've been trying to catch up on things. And this is a general item about an item that you heard. I guess 5 of you did. 2 of you were recused. It was a couple of weeks ago, and it was about the project at 8500 Santa Monica Boulevard, which in a rather tight vote of 3-2 was approved by the Planning Commission. And I'm just here to report that I understand that an appeal has been filed to the City Council asking that your resolution that you passed on a 3-2 vote be appealed to the City Council so that they can have a say in the process. And I'm here to say that I understand that over 100 residents and businessmen and people throughout the city signed that appeal. Personally, I would have sided with Commissioners Copeland and Commissioner Lombardi on that project. I have major concerns. I'm sorry I was not able to be at that meeting. But one of the things that I feel you need to look at, maybe in your long-range planning committee or elsewhere, is this constant trouble with noticing to people in the affected area within the radius of the project that is being considered. I understand that many neighbors did not get the required noticing, and that was one of the reasons that the appeal was filed. Maybe in the future, when you ask, how was this publicly noticed? And then the staff says it was publicly noticed, and then it was not properly noticed, being one of the 6 factors in the appeal. There is something very wrong going on in notifying people, particularly those that will be affected by a project, of its potential, the meetings related to it. I know there's a 500-foot radius, but maybe in projects that span commercial and residential zones, that could be extended to 1,000 feet so that people could really have a chance to participate and get involved in the community. This has been an ongoing problem for years, and it should not stand. This is government lacking in transparency, and the fact that 3 of you, Commissioner Chair Jones, Commissioner Matos, and Commissioner Gregor, did not question that, or the artwork that is supposedly going to be on a billboard, or put many conditions on that appeal, I guess the City Council will be able to hear it. But wouldn't it have been better if maybe you had addressed those issues that were brought up during the Planning Commission hearing? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Victor. That is our last public speaker in the chambers. We do have a couple callers on Zoom. I'll turn that over to Danny. If there is anybody on the Zoom platform that would like to speak, please star 9, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
We have a comment from Lynn Russell. Lynn, please state your name and city of residence for the record, and you have 3 minutes. You may go ahead. And you star 6 to unmute. Lynn, if you hit star 6 to unmute, you can make your public comment. We will move on to our next speaker, Aaron Contreras. Aaron, please state your name.
Hello?
Oh,
Are we on?
is this Lynn? You are on.
Good evening.
Please make your comment, Lynn.
Good evening.
We can't hear the proceedings. There's no sound at all.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead now. You're on public comment. Please state your name and city residence for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. This is Russell, City of West Hollywood. And I would like to comment on a recently written article by Mayor Meister. And it was entitled, Why Ethics Matter in Local Land Use Decisions. It was a very insightful article published in WehoTV, as I believe I said on the 25th, which everyone should read and reread. In my life, I had early exposure to these factors, typical practices essential in nearly every business and governmental affair. With a father as a triple engineer and a patent attorney, he never lost a case before the patent court in Washington. He advised some very, very simple procedures, among them keeping things simple, accurate, always considering ethical principles. In the atmosphere of West Hollywood, this could be very useful for us. And getting it right the first time, especially in land use issues. Therefore, they could be handled expeditiously and responsibly given the financial considerations involved. Further, perhaps the city could initiate a series of regular ethics lectures, classes, or seminars to make it part of every aspect of our lives, not just development and planning decisions. So that is my thoughts for this evening, and I do hope everybody will read the article if they haven't at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next, we have Aaron Contreras. Aaron, if you'll please state your name and city of residence for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Is this for item 10C?
No, this is for public comments, items not on the agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll withdraw and I'll wait.
Thank you.
For item 10C. Thank you.
We have no more speakers.
Great.
That concludes general public comments.
Thank you. Item 7 is director's report.
Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the Commission. John Kehoe, the Director of Planning and Development Services. There aren't any planning-related items on the next City Council agenda, so I thought I'd just give a brief update on where the housing element is, because there has been some discussion about in the news, about in some other communities, about something called builder's remedy. So you may remember that the staff presented to the City Council our housing element last February with a housing element that met the arena requirements. The City Council wanted us to expand on that and provide for more options for housing and look at other ways to provide more housing, especially affordable housing. And so they did not approve it at that time. So we've been working on looking at ways to improve the housing element. But we did send the draft housing element to the state. So HCD has a housing element right now, and they're reviewing it, and hopefully we'll get comments back from them later this month. So if all goes smoothly, hopefully we'll have an adopted housing element sometime in early 2023. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. So if there are any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Kehoe? Looks like you're off the hook.
All right,
Thanks very much. Item 8 is items from commissioners. Commissioner Matos, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I just want to remind everyone that there is an election coming up on Tuesday, so make sure you turn in those ballots.
Any other comments at this time from commissioners? So I just want to state for the record, I had to run out quickly of the last meeting and then return, and it wasn't because it was a phone call, it was after midnight, but I got a notification on my phone that my bank password had been changed. It had not, as it turns out, but it was a little alarming, so I just wanted to let everybody know what was going on with that. Okay, no other comments from anyone? Going to be a no? Okay. Moving on to item 9, it's consent calendar. There is none, and as per the amended agenda, we will now do item 14 and move that up. This is items from staff. 14A is our planning manager's update from Jennifer Alkire.
Good evening, thank you. So I will give you an update on the upcoming agendas. Our next meeting will be on November 17th. We have an item which is a subdivision at 511 Flores. We have a 90-unit residential development at 1317 Crescent Heights. And we also have a hearing, public comment hearing for an environmental impact report for a project at 9160 to 9176 Sunset Boulevard. And just so that everyone knows who's listening, that document is currently available on our city's website under environmental documents. So if you would like to review that ahead of time, it is available to the public on the city's website. The next meeting after that will be December 1st. We've got a general plan consistency for a billboard and change of use at 8465 Santa Monica Boulevard. We have 4 subdivisions. These are all subdivisions that were previously approved and have expired. They are not conversions, they're just the typical subdivision of a building under construction that we've been seeing. We will hear a billboard at 8497 Sunset, and we will look at a zone text amendment for the continued hearing for the zone text amendment for West Hollywood West Design Review Standards. And it looks like that will be our last meeting of the year. We do not have any items at this time for December 15th. For Design Review Subcommittee, we do not have any upcoming items for those meetings. So those meetings will be, it looks like they will be canceled through the end of the year. For Sunset Arts and Advertising Subcommittee, we had talked about having a meeting on December 8th. That is now, looks like there's a conflict with the city's calendar on that date. We've been looking at other dates, but since there isn't anything on the December 15th Planning Commission date, we were hoping we could maybe schedule a Sunset Arts and Advertising Subcommittee meeting for that night instead of December 8th. So for the subcommittee members, if you could let me know if that would be amenable to you. If not, we can look for a different time.
I cannot do that date, sorry.
Okay. All right, I will keep working on that. Thank you. It looks like we've got, so when we come up with a date, and I will let everyone know, the item for that meeting is 8501 Sunset Boulevard. And then the Long Range Planning Subcommittee meeting, the next meeting will be November 17th. It looks like we will be reviewing 3 items: hotel rooftop additions, parking minimums, and objective development standards for multifamily and mixed-use projects. And then on this December 15th, we will also have a long-range planning project subcommittee is scheduled for that date at this time with tree canopy standards. So if there's any updates, we will, of course, let you know. That is all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Jennifer at this time? No? All right, great. Thanks very much. All right. So launching right into public hearings, item 10A is our first hearing. This is 1236 North Fairfax Avenue. This is a public hearing to consider a request to subdivide a 4-story, 7-unit residential building into a common interest development on 1236 North Fairfax. And I will hand this over to staff at this time.
Good evening, Chair Jones and Commissioners. Before you this evening is a request to approve a tentative tract map for a previously approved 4-story, 7-unit multifamily residential building that was approved by the Planning and Development Services Director back in 2015 into a common interest development. A tentative tract map was previously approved by the Planning Commission in 2018 and has since expired. The project was designed and approved to comply with the requirements of dwellings within the R4B zoning district and all other applicable provisions of the city's zoning ordinance. The subdivision of this building will not be detrimental to the public welfare and will not impede implementation of the general plan nor the purpose and intent of the provisions of the zoning ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the subdivision permit as conditioned in draft resolution PC 22-1492. At the time the staff report was prepared, the project had not been issued a certificate of occupancy nor occupied with rental units, so the requested subdivision is not considered a conversion of rental units. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions for staff about items contained in the staff report? Does the applicant want to say anything? Do we have any public speakers on this item?
We do, Chair. We have one public speaker in chambers here. If there is anybody on the Zoom platform that would like to speak on this item, please star 9 for me, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Our first public speaker in chambers will be Victor Omolchenko. Victor, you have 3 minutes.
Oops. Victor Omolchenko, longtime resident of West Hollywood. I guess I've seen these kinds of requests over the years to allow this to become a condominium project. And I know that I've heard this thing that, well, we have to have this hearing because it's a state requirement. It's a state mandate. It's a state law. And thinking back at all of the ones that I've seen like this, when would staff never recommend approval? And when would you, as a planning commission, not recommend approval of this conversion? So let's have a community conversation about this. This is about government efficiency and productivity. If we're always talking about state laws that we're mandated to follow, and we always sort of maybe kind of rubber stamp these, and these have to go through the public noticing project, they have to be listed in the Beverly Press, they have to be noticed, they come to you. So my question to you 7, and maybe to the staff, would be, when have we ever not approved one of these conversions? What are the rules on it? Let's have a community conversation, like we hear so many people say that we should open up the community conversation. Maybe if this has become such a burden, maybe it's not a burden, but it seems like a time sink and the kind of governmentese that the more conservative elements in this country always make our blue progressive states fun of. So, perhaps on the city's legislative affairs agenda, You'll be hearing one successful thing with the gender-neutral bathrooms coming up. Maybe our city could say, hey, state of California, hey, you swamp in Sacramento, how about modifying some of these rules so we don't have to go through a charade of this? And I'll be interested in hearing the questions that all 7 of you have regarding this condo conversion project in my neighborhood at 1236 North Fairfax. And this brings up the other point is I did not get a notice about this. This is a public hearing. Maybe I'm outside the 500-foot mythic radius, but I think it's time for you as our planning commissioners to consider looking into maybe recommending to the city council or looking in your long-range committee, subcommittee, or whatever, looking at maybe extending these kinds of noticing to the public to 1,000 feet. I don't think that would be a Brown Act violation. I don't think it would hurt you to look at the kinds of things that could streamline government, especially up in Sacramento, and stop going through this, what I look at as a charade. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Victor. And Chair, that is our last public speaker for this item.
Thank you. The applicant does have an opportunity to rebut, I believe. They don't usually in these instances for subdivision, but okay, it looks like not. So I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing and we can move into deliberation. Would anyone like to comment or make a motion?
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
I guess I do have one question for the applicant, which is why are you looking to do this?
Okay, I'm gonna reopen the hearing.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, my name is Rowan Kelshaw. I represent the developer. I'm not the owner, but I do represent him. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, so you're asking for a subdivision, and I'm wondering why you're asking for it at this time.
Across his whole portfolio, he builds condominiums as opposed to rental units. It's just his business model.
Where is it?
So this was always your intent, and
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, where's your house?
And the design was always built with the intent that you may proceed with.
Yeah, so it was
subdividing
actually
this.
approved previously, but it expired.
Yep.
So it was always the intention. Yeah.
Just continuing it. Okay, thank you.
Settings.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Connections.
Okay, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing and we can again move into deliberation. Would anybody like to comment or make a motion?
Okay, hang on a second.
I'll make a motion. This matter was previously approved. I'll move that we approve it once again.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Commissioner Copeland?
No, I actually had a question
You can ask a question.
of staff, actually. I thought I read that this was originally, the application was for rental units. I know the applicant just said that it was always a condo. Was this originally for rental units?
Along with the development permit application was a subdivision application that was submitted, and the development permit for the project was approved at staff level, but the subdivision came to the Planning Commission and it was approved in 2018 and has since expired. I think COVID-related issues, they didn't move forward with the final map process, so now they're coming back for another map. But I believe it was the intention all along to subdivide these units into condos.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Chair, thank you.
Oh, don't apologize. Everyone's allowed to ask questions. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Moved by Commissioner Gregoire, seconded by Vice Chair Thomas.
Great. Just as a point of order, if you do touch the screen in a second, just flag me verbally because I'm not always looking at it. I'm doing tennis to see everybody. All right, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor. We can call the vote.
And the motion carries unanimously with 7 ayes. We do have an appeal process for this. item. The resolution the Planning Commission just approved memorializes the Commission's final action on this matter. This action is subject to appeal to the City Council. Appeals must be submitted within 10 calendar days from this date to the City Clerk's office. Appeals must be in writing and accompanied by the required fees. The City Clerk's office can provide appeal forms and information about waiver of fees.
Great, thank you. All right, our second public hearing is item 10B. This is a zone text amendment, or ZTA, for multi-stall gender-neutral restroom facilities. And I will hand this over to staff. I'll let you get situated.
Okay, Steph, you should be good to go.
Good evening, Chair Jones, Co-Chair Thomas, and members of the Commission. My name is Ben Galan. I'm the Building and Safety Manager for the City of West Hollywood. With me is our long-range planning manager, Francisco Contreras. Thank you for your time tonight. Today we're asking the Commission to adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt a multi-stall gender-neutral ordinance. Before providing some background information, I want to clarify that this ordinance is geared towards facilities and privately owned commercial properties such as offices, restaurants, and retail stores, to name a few. Gender-segregated restroom facilities have posed safety concerns for vulnerable people such as transgender and gender non-conforming people, and creates challenges for caregivers of disabled persons of the opposite sex, as well as parents with opposite sex children. In 2014, the West Hollywood adopted an ordinance to require all single-stall restrooms in the city to be gender neutral. A few years later, in 2016, California passed Assembly Bill 1732 that made this mandatory throughout the state of California. These provisions did not apply to multi-stall restroom facilities. On May 3rd, 2021, City Council directed staff and the City Attorney to evaluate and develop an ordinance to require all multi-stall restroom facilities in businesses and places of public accommodation to serve all genders. In evaluating the directive, staff started looking into amending our municipal code. Currently, the design standards for restrooms are found in the California Plumbing Code, which strictly provide for segregated male and female facilities. Amending CPC design provisions were not possible due to technical regulations established by the California Building Standards Commission. The outdated codes were a hurdle for us in creating all-inclusive facilities to provide this basic human need. Our council began lobbying our lawmakers in Sacramento, and District 26 Senator Ben Allen championed this cause and sponsored Senate Bill 1194. This bill relieves local jurisdictions from the CPC's outdated regulations and gives local governments the tools they need to help provide all-inclusive access to safe restroom facilities. It authorizes cities and counties to adopt an ordinance or resolution that would require all privately owned, newly constructed, or significantly renovated places of public accommodation to have gender-neutral multi-stall public restroom facilities. The bill allows us to require that restroom facilities be designed and constructed with single-user toilet compartments and identified for use by all genders. It also gives jurisdictions the flexibility to exclude certain occupancies from these requirements. 1194 passed through the Senate unopposed with bipartisan support, and it was signed by Governor Newsom into law on September 29th. With the passage of 1194, staff shifted its efforts in developing our ordinance. Our ordinance will amend our municipal code and add section 19.20.260, gender-neutral public toilet facilities, to our zoning ordinance. It will also remove language in section 19.36.200, nightclub and related uses, that conflicts with design standards found in the California Plumbing Code. Staff will be requesting revisions to section 4 in the PCA resolution that's before you. We will also request revisions to section 5.d.4 of the resolution to include an appeal process to the director's decision on waivers and modifications. Francisco will go over the details of these requests after the presentation. The design standards we're developing are different than the traditional multi-stall layouts. These re-envisioned facilities will be designed and constructed with single-user toilet facilities and identified for use by all genders. The following images provide examples of built applications that we're trying to accomplish with this ordinance. You may have already seen these in many businesses here in West Hollywood, in local jurisdictions, and they're also becoming popular throughout the United States. Water closets will be designed as single-user compartments and designated for use by no more than one person at a time, or for family or assisted use. The water closets will be enclosed on all sides by walls or partitions extending from the floor to the ceiling, and a door enclosing the fixture for privacy. Urinals shall be located in an area visually separated from the remainder of the facility or in their own compartment. Lavatories will be located in the same compartment as water closets or grouped in an adjacent common use area accessible to all users. Adequate light and ventilation will be provided within each compartment and in each area of the facility. And lastly, this ordinance will not allow for the reduction in the number of ADA or accessible facilities required by federal and state laws. Staff is scheduled to take this ordinance to review and approval to City Council on December 5th. And again, we thank you again for your time, and I'll hand it over to Francisco to go over the request for modifications.
Thank you, Ben, and hello, Commissioners. Francisco Contreras, Long Range Planning Manager. So staff is requesting just 2 clarifying revisions to the resolution. So these are minor, but we just wanted to state them for the record. So on page 3 of 5 of your resolution, section 4 of the resolution, we wanted to revise that language just in order to make it a little bit more clear what our intention was. So we want to strike that language that you have in section 4 now and replace it with the following language. Existing subparagraph C2, restrooms, will be deleted in full, and section C1, interior lighting, will remain as new paragraph C. So what we're trying to say in that is that there were some requirements for interior lighting of nightclub restrooms that we wanted to maintain. So we're just sort of bringing that, instead of deleting that entire section, we just wanted to make sure that we left that in there because it's actually something that we wanted to keep as a design requirement. So that's for that particular section. And then on section 5 of the resolution, this is section 5 of the resolution 1920.26, where it talks about D, waivers and modifications. This is where staff wanted to include something with regards to an appeal process, which is not included in the existing language. So what we want to recommend adding is a new section, section 5D.4, that says, the policy for the consideration, approval, and appeal of the director's decision on waiver or modification request under this section will be adopted by the city manager or their designee. So we're basically authorizing an appeal process, and the city manager will provide us with that particular policy direction as to who's going to be reviewing the appeals that may come from the director's determination. So with that, staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have questions for staff. Great, thank you. Just again, let's please make sure we limit this to questions of staff about items contained in the staff report. Questions should not indicate how you might be feeling about a particular item. Please go ahead, Commissioner Gregoire.
major remodel, what generally constitutes a major remodel?
So we're attaching that to how our zoning ordinance reads. So it's removal, it's 50% of structural removal of the building. But we would like to clarify that also in our design standards, because that wouldn't capture a building that is doing a full gut of the inside of the building, where they're removing the floor, the partition walls and all the restrooms and rebuilding. So we're working on revising that to include those types of projects as well.
Okay, thank you. So in the staff report, it talks about how in a facility with an occupancy of 50 or more people, the CPC will still require 2 separate facilities. I thought the pictures in your staff report were terrific today that showed all sorts of wonderful examples of gender-neutral bathrooms. Am I correct in understanding that that's a facility, so they'd have to, if there's 50 or more occupancy, they'd have to have 2 or more of those types of facilities?
No, so in the staff report, what I was trying to mention is right now the CPC requires separate facilities for male and female. So in the terms of how the CPC reads, when it's 50 or more occupants, they require separate facilities for male and female. So I guess I didn't clarify that really well in my staff report. But when we're talking about the ordinance, the facility that we're referencing to is the type that you saw in the illustrations.
But if there's 50 or more occupancy, they would have to have 2 separate facilities still under the CPC, even though they'd be required.
Under the CPC, that's how it's written, yes.
All right, that's my questions.
Great. I think Commissioner Carvajal had a question. Oh, okay. Commissioner Matos, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I had a quick question pertaining to some language in the staff report. If you look at page 1 on paragraph 3, it says that this ordinance would apply to new developments, significant remodels, and new commercial leases. When I looked at the resolution and throughout the rest of the staff report, the segment referencing new commercial leases was not mentioned. I just wanted to make sure that that was not part of the resolution or wasn't intended to be a part of the resolution.
Sure. Staff, when City Council gave us our direction, they did include new commercial leases. I think we discussed it with staff. I think that was a little too stringent. And from comments we heard from the public and through our commission tour, we felt that it was a little too stringent to apply this ordinance to businesses that are moving into a space that they're maybe intentionally just walking in there to kind of just paint the walls or, redo finish work. And it'd be burdensome for them to redo their bathrooms to comply with the ordinance. So we're going to recommend to council to take the new leases out of the ordinance.
Okay, so just to be sure, that it's intended that this would only apply to new developments and significant remodels.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Copeland, go ahead. Sorry. Commissioner Lombardi, go ahead.
Thank you. I would love to understand if what maybe some of the discussions were regarding safety advantages and disadvantages. If you have any additional input you could maybe provide now with regards to this.
So through our some of the public comments, one of the biggest concern we were hearing from the community was applications of these facilities in public buildings, like in parks, especially outside. There's a variety of safety concerns. So we're going to recommend, when we go to council, we're going to make a recommendation that City Council directs staff to look further into the applications of these facilities in public parks. Obviously, there's different design considerations that need to be considered. So we'll be exploring that more.
Okay, thank you. Also, in your presentation, you mentioned some notes about floor-to-ceiling doors, and it seems that's in the design guides. So I was wondering why that choice was made as opposed to putting it into the actual zone text amendment.
Well, the design standards are going in the resolution, and so the resolution is going to kind of formalize the design standards. So
Okay.
we didn't want to keep them in the ordinance.
Okay. And then how will the design standard be posted and available?
So they'll be in a resolution, and that'll allow us some flexibility. You know, we're going to be I think the first city in the state to adopt an ordinance like this, and you know, there's a possibility, or I'm sure there is going to be some revisions to the design standards as we, you know, work with the community and businesses that will improve them. Sorry.
So I guess I'm wondering what the process is for making that design standard available so that people understand
I'm sorry.
some
Yes,
of these
we're
other
designing
requirements.
building and safety guidelines, so we're going to have some guidelines available in our division and posted on our webpage.
Okay, so it'll be on the city webpage, and it will be part of the process when applicants are moving forward with a project, that you'll direct them to those design standards?
Sure, similar like our you know, seismic retrofit program or our green building program. All that information is available online on our web pages.
Okay.
Yeah, we're sort of developing a design guidebook in order to provide applicants with the information so that they have an understanding of the intent, and then some examples of what we're intending with the design guidelines themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Commissioner Copeland, please go ahead.
Hi, that was touched on mine a little bit. You mentioned that with regard to the public parks and public facilities, that this was going to be going with recommendation to council separately. This is just for commercial. But when they come up with designs for the parks and so forth, is that also going to go before some of our boards and commissions for their inputs, such as public facilities and public safety as well, and maybe open this up to the public and to the neighborhood watch, especially on the east side? They've had some concerns over there.
We would expect that to go through.
This would go through a
our
public
commission.
process
Right,
again?
exactly.
Okay, as well as
the
input from
design
the-
guideline, the design standards for those applications, yes.
Okay, so this, right now, we're just talking about commercial new development and substantial remodels. You mentioned special consideration for religious and educational buildings. So what would be a process to apply for? They would apply for an exemption based on, I mean, what would be some reasons that they could get that special consideration or an exemption from this?
Yeah, they would go through the waiver modification process.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I had right now that weren't already asked. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners at this time for staff? No? Okay. David, do we have any public speakers on this item?
We do, Chair. I have one public speaker in chambers. If there is anybody on the Zoom platform that would like to speak on this item, please star 9 for me if you're calling in, or use the raise hand feature in the Zoom application, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Our first public speaker in chambers will be Victor Omolchenko. And Victor, you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm coming up. I'm having technical difficulties myself here. Learning the new ways. Victor Omolchenko, longtime West Hollywood resident, here to ask, what's the rush here? We always talk about process. I'm happy to see that this bill was passed and shepherded by our Senator Ben Allen. It got bipartisan, unanimous support up in Sacramento. It is an effort to address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, process is important also, and I believe that staff has done a good effort in having meetings and having discussed this issue at the Public Safety Commission as well as at the Public Facilities Commission. But if you will review Exhibit F, it is murky as to how the Senior Advisory Board and how the LGBTQ plus Advisory Board and how the Women's Advisory Board were conferred with. From the reading of Exhibit F, it does not look, it looks like a staff liaison to those commissions or boards contacted them, but if you'll read Exhibit F, staff received no comments from the Women's Advisory Board, no comments from the LGBTQ plus Advisory Board, no comments from other boards. So I bring up the issue that I do understand that this is about commercial developments and major remodels. But I would think that seniors and women and LGBT people might have an opinion about what's happening with these gender-neutral bathrooms in remodels or in new commercial developments. So I believe the process would be better if those different boards could have a briefing from the staff about this major change, this codifying of an amendment, before you, as our planning commission, codify, which is a very important thing when you see zone text amendment. So let's include the other groups besides public facilities and besides public safety in at least having a chance to review the project like was reviewed at the Transgender Advisory Board. And that is some late incoming correspondence from staff. A colleague of mine, Stephanie Harker, was the one member of the public who attended that meeting to hear and to offer suggestions and to speak with the Transgender Advisory Board. She was not able to be here, but that meeting did result in some input for you to consider before you pass this zone text amendment. So I urge you that the process include the Senior Advisory Board, the LGBTQ plus Advisory Board, and the Women's Advisory Board. They should also have a briefing, as well as Jewish Family Services, which provides a lot of services in Plummer Park, and I hear that there's concern on the part of the Russian-speaking community about these bathroom changes. So maybe even the Russian-speaking advisory board should have a chance to have some input before you pass this zone text amendment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor. And Chair, we have no other public speakers at this time. Victor was our last public speaker. So.
Great, thank you. With that being said, then I will close the public comment portion of the hearing and we can move into deliberation. Do we have comments or a motion? Commissioner Gregoire, please go ahead.
I support staff's recommendation this evening to recommend this item to the City Council. I think it's terrific that in progressive West Hollywood, we're going to take this step. You know, I think it really shows that the city is taking a leadership role in moving forward to try to protect people of all genders. So I think it's a terrific thing, and I think we should pass it and move it forward. I just had a couple of comments that it might be worth putting in the staff report to City Council when it moves on. I did have some concerns about urinals. I don't go out to clubs very much anymore, but I used to. West Hollywood is a city that has a lot of nightclubs, and there is great interest in making sure that there is flow of traffic through the restrooms. I understand the CPC still requires urinals, and I guess I would hope that urinals would be, when it goes through design, building and safety, that some accommodation be made for urinals. I understand that will still be required, but it seems to me that we want to facilitate people in nightclubs to be able to get in and out of the bathrooms. So having traditional urinals would be something to make sure that we can preserve. My other comment, and I don't know if there's a fix for this, but floor to ceiling doors, stalls. I think are important, but the one negative to keep in mind is that in our nightclubs, there can be inappropriate activity that goes on in the stalls, which will make security problematic. I'm not sure I have a fix for that. I think there's a lot of good reasons to have the floor-to-ceiling stalls, but I just wanted to flag that for City Council. And my last comment was, I don't think there's anything we can do about it because it's required by the CPC, but if you have an occupancy of 50 or more people, you have to have 2 separate bathroom facilities, which obviously it will impose an unnecessary cost on the business community to have essentially 2 probably identical bathroom facilities that are all gender neutral. It seems to me that the state should probably go forward and change the CPC to allow 1 bathroom facility where they are gender neutral, because it seems like there's no longer going to be a need to have 2 separate bathroom facilities. So again, I don't think that's a problem to hold this up. That's a problem that will have to get fixed in Sacramento. But I figured I would mention that because it would be good. There is a cost associated with making these bathrooms gender neutral, and we could provide relief if we could get the state to say where you have gender neutral bathrooms, you only have to have 1 facility if the occupancy is 50 or more. So those are my thoughts.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Gregoire. Commissioner Copeland, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I didn't have my hand up, but I can add some comments.
I was just a look.
I do have some concerns about, this is something that's very, very great. I mean, it's progressive and we're trying to be very inclusive, but I have concerns that are we excluding input from important members and commissions and boards and the public that could be affected by this. I mean, distributing a memo to a liaison is not quite the same thing as what we've done with some of the commissions. And there is a concern about that if we're going to do something, this important, we should have equal input from anyone who might be affected. So I do have concerns with that. I think the other questions that I had concerns with were already answered earlier. That's all I have right now. Thank you, Chair.
Sure, thank you. Commissioner Matos, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I'm personally very excited to support this motion. I think that, our city council and city leadership and our state leadership that represents this area has been really, really forward on this, and that's a good thing. There is one thing that I just want to say as a concern to building and safety for them to consider as they move forward to council. And that would be, there has to be some sort of ability to access the floor-to-ceiling door bathrooms if there is someone experiencing a medical emergency in a public space, specifically in our nightclubs. I'm specifically, wanting to make sure that if someone was having that medical emergency and that door was closed for a significant amount of time, that there would be able to be medical personnel or emergency personnel that would be able to access the facility and administer aid. But other than that consideration, which can be sussed out as this moves forward to council, I'm very supportive of the item, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve it.
Commissioner Lombardi, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm excited for this measure. I think it's been long overdue. I've been waiting for this to come forward, and I'm really excited that our city is being progressive. I hadn't really thought about the concerns about having a fully closed stall, as Commissioner Matos just stated, so I'm not sure how to address that right now. I was thinking about it more from a privacy standpoint and appreciating the full height stalls. It seems like it's fairly common internationally and in Europe, so I don't know if there's anything to be learned about nightclubs out there in other cities that may already have a more common setup like this than West Hollywood, but I'd suggest maybe looking into that a little bit further. I am a little bit concerned about the amount of outreach to the boards and commissions. So without slowing things down, I guess my suggestion would be, is there opportunity to include more of their participation as this moves forward to City Council? Maybe that is, and maybe that would be the best way to address some of those concerns, and I would be in support of that.
Sure. Can I just clarify some of our community engagement efforts? So we have met with the Government Affairs Committee. We've also met with the Public Facilities Commission. We also did present at the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board. We presented at the Public Safety Commission. Last night we did present at the Trans Advisory Board. We are scheduled to present on November 16th to the Disability Advisory Board as well. So we've hit almost all of the stakeholder commissions and advisory boards.
Okay, I would encourage you to reach out to all of them and try to get as much participation as possible.
We can do that.
Otherwise, I mean, I'm very much in support of this. I do hope that we can continue to tune the design guidelines and standards to make sure that that's really clear for businesses, because this does add a perhaps unfamiliar step in architecture design, and also for an applicant that might not be familiar with this setup. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's evolved as well, and making sure that it's clear and readily available.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So we saw this item in long-range planning. I supported it then, I support it now. I feel that multi-stall, gender-neutral bathrooms make our values real and tangible to our constituents. I'm glad to see that the governor signed this, and I was happy to see the coalition building from our council members. I'm a bit disappointed that we're so behind on this as a state. I saw gender-neutral multi-stall, floor-to-ceiling bathrooms in Georgia a year ago, but I'm glad that it's happening now, and I support accepting this ZTA. And to the point about safety, I do think there needs to be continued conversation about encouraging our nightlife community in particular to provide security for medical emergencies or anything else that could be happening behind those doors. So I think that we should continue to have a conversation around that. But the community most impacted by this, that being the Transgender Advisory Board, their support is most important to me, and I'm glad that they support this, I support this, and I'm ready to vote.
Commissioner Caballero.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a little bit of history. We implemented gender-neutral bathrooms in Stash about a year ago. And when we were researching the state for guidelines for the gender-neutral bathrooms, they had in their code that there was a 2-inch gap at the bottom and a 2-inch gap at the top. And then we worked with staff to try to redefine that, and that's when we came up to the floor to ceiling for the walls, and not floor to ceiling for the door, but the door can be normal size, but it has to be completely enclosed. And then what we did at Stash was that we had emergency locks on the outside, so if somebody does get into trouble, a manager or a couple of people have this key that allows the stall to open up. I'm not sure if that's still working, but it's been a big success, and I'm in full support of this ZTA.
Any additional questions or comments? Commissioner Copeland, go ahead.
No, I would be very much in support of this, as long as we have, clarified that we do want input from everyone, women included and seniors included, and also when this comes to our public facilities and parks as well, the same thing. We really do need input from everyone in the community and equally, and I'm very happy to see this move forward. And
Okay. I don't really have anything to add. It's one of the bonuses of sitting where I sit right now. I think my questions have been adequately answered, and I also am very much in support of this motion. But again, it sounds like staff is on the right path, but just do want to encourage you to make sure to engage as much of the other boards and commissions as possible to make sure that we really do feel like everyone has been heard as this is moving along to council. So with that, do we have a motion on the floor right now in a second?
Yeah, yes. Moved by Vice Chair Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Matos.
Okay, so can you state the motion, please?
I move to approve the staff recommendation of the zone text amendment for multi-stall, gender-neutral restroom facilities.
Okay. And are we adding language, or do we need to add language about including, please go ahead. Isaac, looks like you want to say something.
Vice Chair, would the motion include the two proposed amendments that our long-range director mentioned on the record, which was keeping the existing interior lighting standards within that section of the code and adding a new section 5D4 for the city manager to create a policy for appeals of the director's decision with respect to waiver or modification requests?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Wait a second. Go ahead.
Did you switch out the opaque to transparent or translucent in the resolution, that glass specification?
We will do that in the design guidelines.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Yeah.
And the motion passes unanimously, approving resolution number PC 22-1495. There is no appeal process. This is a recommendation to City Council. And Chair, if I can interject, if staff is requesting a short break for that, we can do some technical testing with the applicant's presentation.
They're lucky because I also was going to request a break. So you're in luck. See you back here in a few minutes.
Test, test.
Okay, now can you hear me? Can we get a test from Lori too? Can you just?
Yes, hello, hello.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm gonna wait for David to come back. He's our meeting keeper. So I believe there may not have been, if I'm understanding correctly, there may not have been any audio for people who are tuning into the live stream. So I do just want to restate that Commissioner Gregoire did recuse because he owns property and lives within 500 feet of the project that we're hearing tonight. And again, just to state that for the record, this is item 10C. This is 8527 to 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard and 8532 to 8552 Northwest Knoll Drive. And with that, I will hand this over to Lori Yeldon.
Good evening, Chair Jones and Commissioners. Before you tonight is a request to demolish 3 commercial structures, surface parking lots, and 4 single-family dwelling units on 6 contiguous parcels in order to construct. I think it's.
We don't have any sound.
So it sounds like on the Zoom, we still don't have sound.
Can you hear me?
It's back now.
Test.
Thank you for letting us know, Mark.
Okay, before you tonight is a request to demolish 3 commercial structures, surface parking lots, and 4 single-family dwelling units on 6 contiguous parcels in order to construct a new 5-story, 100,058 and 836 square foot mixed-use building with 44,274 square feet of commercial space, including 12 live-work units, 111 apartment units, of which 17 are affordable, with 3 parking levels located at 8527 through 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard and 8532 through 8552 Northwest Knoll Drive, which we will refer to going forward as 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard. The proposed project is a qualifying housing development project as defined by state law, which dictates specific procedural requirements when considering a qualifying HAA project. As such, the project will assist the city in meeting its housing goals by adding 111 new residential units to the city's housing stock, helping the city achieve its regional housing needs allocation, also known as RHNA, goals of 3,933 units before year 2029. This housing development project is subject to the Housing Accountability Act and applicable state housing law, as this project is 70% residential, exceeding the 2/3 residential threshold required under the HAA, and meets applicable objective development standards in effect at the time the proposed project was deemed complete in 2016. The project has been analyzed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, guidelines, and an EIR was prepared. The original draft EIR was circulated in 2017, and a recirculated draft EIR was circulated in late 2021. The proposed project study was found to have one significant and unavoidable impact with regard to construction noise. The proposed project's temporary construction-related noise impact remains above the threshold of significance, even with mitigation incorporated. Consequently, the Commission is being asked to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. The applicant is not requesting any legislative or changes or variances. The proposed project complies with the code and general plan of what is allowed and envisioned for this site and is compliant with the applicable objective city standards in effect when the project was deemed complete in 2016, some of which are not consistent with the current code requirements. The project includes height and FAR bonuses based on the proposed mixed-use nature of the project in accordance with the mixed-use development overlay zone, an FAR bonus for the provision of affordable housing, and FAR bonus available to mixed-use projects that achieve a minimum of 90 points on the West Hollywood Green Building Points system. From the time the application was submitted in 2012, approximately 13 meetings have been conducted with respect to this project by the city and by the applicant to discuss the proposed project. The project has been reviewed by the city's urban design team and has been heard by the design review subcommittee 5 times. The city also held 2 public hearings on the recirculated draft EIR before the Transportation Commission and before the Transportation Commission in November of 2021. The proposed project consists of a mixed-use building with a height of 55 feet and 5 stories along both Santa Monica Boulevard and Northwest Knoll Drive, and includes the following uses: 111 apartment units, of which 17 are affordable, using a base density of 60 units for the commercial lots and a base density of 22 for the residential lots, live-work units, 12 to be exact, restaurant and cafe uses, retail space, personal service, hair salon, 133 bicycle parking stalls, and office space. The apartment units include studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units that range in size from 410 square feet to 1,721 square feet, with an average unit size of 905 square feet. The project includes 2,000 square feet of common open space located on the 2nd level and includes at least 120 square feet of private open space per unit, with a total of 22,483 square feet of private open space in the form of private patios or balconies for each of the residential units throughout the project. Additional open space is located on the roof level area, including the pool at the southeast corner of the building. The project includes 15,494 square feet of live-work area, which is 12 live-work units. Live-work is a commercial use and is not characterized as residential, even though it includes a housing component. It provides for the creation of alternative workspace that will provide an incentive for entrepreneurs, business owners, artists, artisans, architects, designers, and other individuals to continue to work in West Hollywood and contribute to the city's economy. As far as we are aware, live-work units do not count toward the city's RHNA numbers and therefore does not count toward the inclusionary count or requirements. The proposed building height is measured as required by code for sloping lots. The residential slope is approximately 5.1% sloping, and the commercial lot is approximately 13.2% sloping, which qualify for a sloping site. The proposed mixed-use structure would be a maximum of 55 feet in height measured along Santa Monica Boulevard and along Northwest Knoll Drive. Along Santa Monica Boulevard, the height of the building would be approximately 48 feet from the ground surface to the top of the 3rd floor at the property line. The code does not require a front yard setback in commercial zones. However, the 1st floor is set back 3.5 feet from the front property line. The 2nd and 3rd floors are cantilevered and extend to the front property line. The 4th floor is set back 8 feet from the front property line, and the 5th floor has 2 heights, a lower height setback of approximately 27 feet and an upper height setback of approximately 34 feet. The adjacent Ramada Hotel has an existing height of 60.5 feet along Santa Monica Boulevard with an additional approximate 2-foot architectural projection, so the proposed 55-foot mixed-use building would be of a lower height along Santa Monica Boulevard. Per laterally sloping site measurement requirements, which is at least 5% slope or more from the front property line to the rear property line, elevation measurements were taken from the site survey at all corners of the property from property line to property line as shown in the height diagram. These elevation measurements establish the midpoint for the parcel as measured upward from that midpoint. An imaginary line is then drawn perpendicular to and extended outward toward the front of the rear property line until it reaches the angle line. From the top of the midpoint line, the angle is drawn at a profile of 1 foot vertically to 2 feet horizontally, or a 2-to-1 cut to connect the lower midpoint line with the perpendicular line. The area within the diagram then becomes the building envelope. The site has been developed and is flat in some areas. However, the method of determining whether a site is sloped is measuring the front and rear property lines of the project site to create logical building design on a parcel that may be flat in some areas and sloped in others, since it is a development site. Essentially, it's connecting the imaginary lines from the corners of the project parcels and using that differential to create the building envelope within this volume. It is worth noting that this is not the first time the code has been applied using a laterally sloping site, using multiple parcels that are sloped in some areas and flat in others. As long as the slope is greater than 5%, it is at the option of the applicant to choose which sloping site method to use for the project. In 2016, state density bonus law allowed 35% maximum combined density bonus that a developer could seek under Government Code 65915. The applicant is seeking the 35% density bonus for this project. However, changes to state density bonus law means that if the applicant were to submit a new application today, they could seek and qualify a larger percentage and a higher number of density bonus units above 35%. The commercial component of the project includes a base density of 60 units, and of these, the applicant is providing 6 very low income units and 6 moderate income units on the commercial lots. This qualifies the project for a 35% density bonus or 0.7 FAR for residential purpose and 3 concessions under the West Hollywood Municipal Code and California State Density Bonus Law for providing the requisite percentage of affordable housing units. In this case, 10% moderate income units and 14% very low income units. The applicant is requesting 2 of the 3 available concessions. Concessions can include a reduction in site development standards or a modification of zoning code requirements or architectural design requirements. The concession for this project requested are an additional story not to exceed 10 feet in height and a mezzanine parking level for residential vehicle and bicycle spaces consisting of a partial level located above the portion of the first floor and below a portion of the second floor, open to the first floor and predominantly subterranean, and creating no greater volume in the project's envelope than that authorized under the code, including the height, incentive, and concession. The proposed project would provide a total of 347 parking spaces within 3 levels of parking pursuant to the parking requirements in effect in 2016. Guest parking spaces are not required for projects utilizing housing density bonus. The applicant submitted a parking demand study and as a result has requested a reduction of 9 parking spaces from 356 to 347. Because this project was deemed complete in 2016, subsequent code changes do not apply. This includes revised parking requirements that were adopted by City Council in 2018, which were based on extensive demand studies conducted by the city. It is worth noting that if the same project were submitted now, the commercial component of the project would require 75 parking spaces, which is 106 fewer spaces than what is proposed with this project. When the project was deemed complete, the city utilized a green building point system. And as noted above, the project is required to comply with the standards in place at the time the project was deemed complete. The proposed project would achieve 90 points on the city's green building point system checklist. As an incentive for reaching 90 points, the applicant requests a 0.1 FAR bonus, which is available to high-achieving projects under the applicable version of the Green Building Program. Additionally, conditions 6.42 and 6.43 in Resolution PC 22-1482 require that a project include a minimum of 90 green building points to be reviewed and approved during the building and safety plan check process prior to building permit issuance. If the project does not meet the 90 green building points, the project shall be revised to include a reduced FAR by 0.1. As previously mentioned, an EIR was prepared for this project to evaluate any potential environmental effects that would result from development of the proposed project and to inform the public of decision makers of these potential effects. It evaluates and discloses potential